Have you ever really stopped to think about how a thought, well, travels? Or how you can feel something in an instant? It's not magic. It's this incredible electrical and chemical journey. And in this explainer, we're going to follow one of those signals from the very beginning all the way to the end.
So let's start with something super relatable. You're about to hop in the shower. You stick your hand under the water just to test the temperature. It's something we do without thinking, right? But underneath the surface, a whole lightning-fast chain of communication is just kicking off.
So, yeah, how does that actually work? How does that feeling of hot get from your fingertips all the way up to your brain and tell you to maybe pull your hand back? Let's trace that signal's journey and break it down, step by step. Okay, so the journey always starts with that first contact. The stimulus, in our case, the hot water, has to be translated from a physical thing into the language your nervous system understands. And it doesn't start with a bang. It actually starts with a whisper. That first little whisper is what we call a graded potential. You can think of it like a dimmer switch for a light. If the water is just lukewarm, it might cause a tiny little change in the neuron's voltage. But if the water is really hot, well, that causes a much bigger change. The key word here is graded. The size of the signal totally depends on the size of the stimulus. It's not just on or off. Now, it gets a little more complicated because these whispers aren't all saying the same thing. Your neuron is constantly getting conflicting advice. Some signals are excitatory, they're the go signals, pushing the neuron to fire off a message. And others are inhibitory, they're the stop signals, telling it to just chill out. So, what's a neuron to do with all this chatter? Well, it's basically a tiny calculator. It's always running a process called summation, where it's adding up all the go signals and subtracting all these stop signals. It's doing this constantly, trying to decide one simple thing. Is this message important enough to pass on? And this is where it all comes to a head. This is the big decision point. The neuron has been listening to all these little whispers, doing its math, and now it has to make a choice. It either shouts the message down the line with everything it's got, or it stays completely silent. There is absolutely no in-between. And it all boils down to this one number, negative 55 millivolts. This is the threshold. If all those go signals add up and manage to push the neuron's internal voltage up to this magic number, well, that's when everything changes. The second that threshold is hit, the whisper becomes a shout. A huge, undeniable shout. This is the action potential. And let's be super clear about the difference here. A graded potential is like that dimmer switch. It can be weak or strong, but the action potential, it's a light switch. It's either 100% on or it's off. It is a digital, all or nothing, clear and simple yes. And this shout isn't just random chaos. It's this beautiful, perfectly timed wave of electricity. First, you get depolarization, where the voltage just skyrockets. Then comes repolarization, where it drops right back down. It even overshoots a tiny bit, that's hyperpolarization, before it settles back into its resting state, all reset and ready for the next signal. Okay, quick pause. Exam trap alert. You're definitely going to want to pay attention here, because this is a classic spot where people get tripped up. After a neuron fires, it can't just immediately fire again. It needs a little bit of a cool-down period. This recharge time actually has two parts. First is the absolute refractory period. And absolute means absolutely not. The neuron cannot fire again. I don't care how strong the signal is. Then you have the relative refractory period. Here, it can fire again, but you'd need a much, much stronger signal than usual to make it happen. And this whole process is crucial because it makes sure the signal only travels one way down the nerve. So our action potential has been triggered, it's on its way, but how does this signal travel? Sometimes for really long distances, like from your spine down to your toe, without losing any power. Well, the secret is all about speed and insulation. And I want you to meet the star of the show when it comes to speed, the myelin sheath. This is a fatty substance that wraps around the axon, kind of like the rubber insulation on an electrical cord. And this stuff is a total game changer. So here's the difference. An axon without myelin is like taking the local roads with a stoplight on every corner. The signal has to be regenerated at every single point along the way. It's slow. But a myelinated axon, that's the expressway. The signal doesn't have to hit every single spot. It gets to jump. And this awesome jumping trick has a pretty cool name, saltatory conduction. The action potential literally leaps from one little gap in the myelin to the next. Those gaps are called nodes of Ranvier. This is what makes our nervous system so incredibly fast. And it's why you can pull your hand away from that hot water in a fraction of a second.
Okay, our signal has been flying down the axon expressway, and it's reached the end of the line, the axon terminal. But now it hits a roadblock. There's a physical gap, the synapse, between it and the next cell. And this is a gap it can't just jump across.
So, to get across, the signal has to do something really clever. It has to change languages, from electrical to chemical. When the action potential arrives, it opens up gates for calcium. Calcium rushes in, and that's the signal for these tiny bubbles called vesicles to dump their cargo, chemical messengers called neurotransmitters, right into the gap. Those messengers just float across and lock onto the next cell, passing the message on.
So the message is sent. How is it received? Well, you've basically got two main options. Ionotropic receptors are the express lane. They're just simple gates that open up right away. Then you have metatropic receptors. They're a little slower, more of a scenic route, and they kick off whole chain reaction inside the cell. Both are super important for different jobs.
We are on the final leg of this journey. The signal has crossed the gap, it's delivered its message to the brain, and the brain has processed it. And the verdict is in. Whoa, that water is hot. Pull the hand away. So now a whole new signal has to travel back out to make that happen. And here we see the whole loop come together. A brand new command signal travels from your brain, down your spinal cord, and out to the muscles in your arm. And its final destination is this really specialized synapse called the neuromuscular junction. Right here, at the finish line, a very specific neurotransmitter gets the job, acetylcholine, or ACH for short. When ACH locks onto the receptors on that muscle fiber, it tells the muscle to contract. And just like that, you pull your hand away from the hot water, mission accomplished. But wait, the story isn't quite over. Because turning the signal on is only half the battle. You have to be able to turn it off too. You don't want your muscles stuck in contraction mode forever. And that's where this enzyme, acetylcholinesterase, comes in. It's the cleanup crew. It swoops in and instantly breaks down the acetylcholine, clearing the slate so your muscle can relax and get ready for the next command. So from that first touch to pulling your hand away, that whole journey we just followed, the whisper, the all-or-nothing shout, the race down the axon, the chemical handoff, it all happens in just a few milliseconds. It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? If our entire reality is built on the sum of these impossibly fast, fleeting signals, what does that say about how we actually perceive the world around us?